The first big hit in my father's life was losing his first wife at such an early age. Second hit was the mortgage couldn't be made, couldn't continue with, and so Prudential took over the farm, lock, stock, and barrel.
And where was this farm?
It was right there on the Western Avenue, coming off of Route 32, about 3 miles north of Windsor. And both his mother and father came from right there, within a stone's throw. So they moved into town to an old man's house, Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray traded them living in the house for taking care of him. And that Leon had been born already at the farm. He's the only one. And then Quentin and me and Mary were all born at Mr. Gray's house. My dad's next big knockdown was he got a broom factory up and going, and he made brooms. In those days, there was not a broom corn grown in that area of Illinois, and you had to cut it, stack it, dry it, knock the seeds off, and then turn it into brooms. So he had the capacity to do all of that, and a factory building where he did it. But one day, Quentin and Leon were playing around in there, and there was a big old iron stove there that heated the place. And they were sticking broom corn in there, which, after it's dried, it burns all kinds of sparkly and does wonderful things. And they were a little bit careless, like kids are. And so, in no time, the whole factory was on fire.
What year was this?
This is about 1936 or so, heart of the Depression.
You were 3 years old?
I was 3 years old. And Uncle Paul, he features in a lot of other stories. He was never an uncle, but he was the son of S.R. Harsman, and he always fancied himself a salesman. He was working for my dad as salesman for brooms. And Uncle Paul came to see about the fire, and he managed to park his car tires right on the hose they had run from the fire department to put the fire out. So they couldn't get the water through the hose, and the factory burnt to the ground. They managed to save the house. It didn't burn. So now my dad had experienced his third great setback in life and became a non-risk taker for the rest of his life. What if? What if? What if? So that's who it is. But then, this is a little bit of the school teacher, what she looked like back then. Yeah, that's about that time. This is a little bit earlier. This is, she came to live with Aunt Leah. Aunt Leah had done tent work like her father. And in her tent work, she'd gone to poor places like Clay County. Mm-hmm. And this little gal loved school. Her mother had died, and she was trying to take care of running the household for my grandfather. He was a crusty guy. This was not fun. She wanted to go on to school. Aunt Leah in her revival meetings said, come up and live with me and you can go to school. So she did. She came up and lived at Aunt Leah's house and went to Sullivan High School, editor of the yearbook. She gets out, she still likes education, still likes school, so she starts teaching at Lone Star School. In those days, all you had to have was barely high school education. And she's good at that. She recognizes that she's good at that. But the state of Illinois, this was taken in Spearfish Canyon, South Dakota, because she went to Spearfish State Teachers College in South Dakota. And there she got the necessary classroom credits in the summertime to come back and be licensed under the state of Illinois at that time. So she could get a bigger, better school. And so here she is looking real fetching. Here she is about the time she was married and was now teaching later on, and was a Bev kind of teacher. She engaged those kids in all sorts of different ways, and she loved them. And so he has now met her, and with Aunt Liz's permission, married her.
And then what about?
She was editor of the yearbook, Sullivan High School. Mm-hmm. And here they are, and this is the way I remember them best, because by now they're the age that I remember them well. And so this particular photograph captures their real appearance rather than the studio appearance that they might have. And this was about my mother's last year on this earth at 49. She was killed in an automobile accident. But in the meantime, she taught hundreds of kids how to read. And she also did the incredible thing of teaching all 8 grades, 28 kids in the classroom, making the fire, caring for the whole place, while she was doing that in the country schools. She moved to town, taught at power school, first grade, for year after year.
What about that? When was that taken?
This was taken Thanksgiving time, back about, let's see here, back about 1950, give or take a little bit. Here again is Leon on this side, Quentin up here. My dad sees something funny, my mom sees something funny. Lenore's quite worried here. Mary's concerned. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Julian's very happy. He's apparently made some sort of joke. And Ralph is looking very, very serious. This is taken in Uncle Glenn's living room in Rockford, Illinois, that year. That particular year, at Thanksgiving, it went to 17 below in Rockford, Illinois. None of the cars up and down the street would start. And finally, somebody got a car going and came up and down and jumped everybody else's car and got them going. We had an old 1936 Dodge, and the back doors on that Dodge opened forward, and they didn't fit well. So they just scooped cold air as you went along. Oh, freeze your feet off in that car. But there we are with Aunt Jessie, Uncle Glenn, Thanksgiving Day in about 1950.